All right, welcome back. So we're going to start using our backend to do things. The first task we want to do is read, right? So we've already got data in there, so we don't need to create. We just want to read. So we're going to go into our MQ endpoints, and we're going to add some code. We're going to kind of take the same philosophy we did with our code on the back end. We're going to kind of copy in some chunks, and we're going to talk about it. And that'll just kind of get us to where we want to go faster. So in this doc, find the endpoint specific section here, and just go ahead and copy it. Oops, looks like it ran onto the next page for me. And let's go ahead and paste it in to our JavaScript, and let's talk about what we've got. I'm going to put it just kind of like down at the bottom, just below the document ready function. Cool, so let's take a look at what we got here. So the first thing we've added is we've added some variables. So we've got this default limit of 10. 10 actually is the default, but I went ahead and specified it. We've got an API root variable. This is a little sneaky. It's kind of clever. I didn't make it, somebody else did it. Since you're sometimes using localhost and you're sometimes using deployed, you actually pull the Windows locations, whatever URL this window is at, and that defines what your host is, right? And then from your host, it's always _AH API. That's your API's root. We're using our movie quotes API, so we have to add on some things to that. We're going to add on movie quotes, v1, and then I chose to add on the word movie quote because that's the only object that I'm working with, right? So all these actions are movie quote actions. So I just went ahead and put it on here. Then that way, whenever I want to do like a get somewhere later, I just have to say my movie quotes API plus list, right? You see this had a trailing slash on it, so I just say list. So it's kind of a convenience way to get my URLs. So let's look at what some of these methods are doing. So there's a method called list movie quotes, and you can see that it's a method, but it's not actually called anywhere yet. Let's go ahead and call it. So we'll just put this right into our document.ready. So we'll just say rh.mq.list movie quotes. We're going to pass in no parameters to start with. So let's look at this function. So this function receives a page token and a limit. So you can change how many you get. You can also change like where you start in terms of your page token and where you start. It's preparing an object of query parameters. So it's preparing an order. The order we've hard-coded to always be the inverse of last touch date times. That's newest on top. The limit is going to be the limit if they passed it in, or if they didn't pass in a limit, use the default limit, which is defined up here to be 10. This is a very common JavaScript trick, by the way, where we say or, because or doesn't just return true or false. It actually returns the thing, right? So if this one is undefined, it'll actually return 10. It's a nice little shortcut trick for JavaScript. Page token, if page token is undefined, then just go ahead and pass in null, and that's fine. It works fine. There's little things I could say about undefined, ORed with null being kind of a weird thing in JavaScript, but it all works out just fine. When you call this method, it prepares that object, and then it uses a jQuery approach to actually getting the data. Later, we'll show you another way to do it with the auto-generated client code, but right now, we're using jQuery because that's what we've done in the past, and I want to kind of build in small steps, right? So we're going to do a get JSON. We're going to go to this URL, which is our list API. We're going to pass in with it our query parameters. Since this is a getter, they're actually just kind of like tacked onto the URL, but that's fine. Once it's finished, we're going to get JSON data back. And what we're doing here is we're pulling off of that the new quotes. And so that's JSON.items. And then we're also pulling off the page token, and we're just logging them. So it doesn't look like much, but it should print just like a ton of logs if this thing works. So let's go into our static page, the one that says endpoints on it. I'm not doing anything with the HTML, so I may as well make my my console huge, right? Because the only thing is going to be down here. As soon as I hit refresh, that'll actually get my new code, which has all my queries in it, and I can see it work just like bang. right? You'll notice that it prints out the whole JSON object, so it's a list of movie quotes, so those are items. And then I actually printed out the items themselves, so these are the individual movie quotes. So there's Titanic right on top, and then Wizard of Oz. So cool, and those should be the same ones that are over here. So Titanic and then Wizard of Oz. I also printed out the next page token just to show that I've got one. If you wanted to make a change, you could of course change the limit. Let's say we made our limit be just 2. And then if we went and reloaded our page, you can see now we've got just 2 movie quotes. So let's go ahead and see if we can make these display on the page and actually make them show up. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do something with our next page token and our JSON items, right? What we'd like to do with the next page token is actually pretty simple. I really just want to save off the next page token, because if another query gets made, I just want to have a reference to it. So I'm basically just going to create a variable, and then I'm just going to save it off. It's really all I'm going to do there. So that one's pretty easy. So instead of being null, it's just going to be that guy right there. Great. As far as the new quotes and what do I want to do with those, that's actually going to be a little bit more complex. So I'm actually just going to make a method. So I'm going to say rh.mq append new quotes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass in JSON.items or the empty array. And I do that or empty array just kind of like as a quickie little error checking. In case something went wrong, I still give them an empty array. Just so that I can know that that method is actually getting an array. You can keep the logs if you want, or if you're feeling confident, you can delete all the logs, because once it shows up on the page, you don't need the logs anymore, right? Sure hope it shows up on the page. If it doesn't, you start putting your logs back. So what this thing is going to do is this is going to receive a bunch of quotes to add. I guess I should move it up my page some. So quotes to add. And it's going to actually add them to the page. So what we're going to do first is we're actually just going to make a little for loop. Some of this will be new syntax for you. We'll say var quote to add. Note that that's singular. Of quotes to add. Technically, the for of loop was new with ES6, but it is really handy. You can say for of, and that'll give you the values, or you can say for in, and it'll give you the keys. The keys would be quite worthless on an array because they would be like the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we want to do is we just want to do a console log just to kind of keep showing you new things. There's string interpolation, which is an ES6 trick. In order to do string interpolation, you have to hit the backtick key. Note that this is not double quote. It is not single quote. It is the backtick key. It should be like just to the left of your number 1 on your keyboard. Is add, and then we're going to actually like stick in the variable. So like the quote to add dot quote. So you'll notice that it's still a string. This is string interpolation. So it's a $sign, and then a mustache, and then a variable, and then you can keep doing more things. From, we'll just say quote to add dot movie. The other nice thing about backticks is they allow string interpolation, so you can stick in variables. You can also put in things like, so here I'm just going to put in like double quotes, basically just because I can, and it'll just print them out just fine. So it's really similar to like the triple quote thing that Python does. You can use extra lines, whatever you want. It all just kind of works the way you would hope with string interpolation. All right, so this is a good step forward, but there's still like more we could do. But let's make sure this step works. So if I refresh the page now, you can see that it says add, I'm king of the world, and add, I'll get you my pretty, from the Wizard of Oz. Notice that I've still got mine set on 2 quotes. We'll bump that up here in a little bit, but I really don't care, so I'm just going to leave it for now. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to actually like make this thing be on the page already. I want to see it. You're killing me here. And so we're going to have to write some code in here just to make your life easier. This one you can just go copy. So what the heck, I'll go copy it too. So the real point of it is that we want to build up some HTML. So we're going to find our movie quote template. So you can make sure that that like matches exactly with what you call that ID. So movie quote template, great, matches. We're going to clone it, so it kind of makes a copy of it. That copy is not in the DOM by default. We're going to remove the ID attribute because we're just taking off that thing that said movie quotes template. We're also going to remove the class hidden, so it's going to show up on the page. And then we're going to find the .quote class, and we're going to set the quote as appropriate. We're going to find the .movie that's in there. We're going to set the movie as appropriate. And then we're going to append it onto the table body. And that was a variable I haven't copied in yet, so I probably ought to do that. You'll notice that the T body starts with a $sign. That's just the naming convention that says, hey, this is a jQuery object. And you can see that all it did is it just found the T body, right? So it turns out that all these things go into the table body. It's just the parent element, right? So with this, we should actually like see a bunch of things show up. So this is going to be like a big step for us. Hit refresh, boom, they're on the page. The console is now not as useful. 2 is a lovely number of quotes. It isn't quite as robust as you would hope. It's just 2, right? Let's go and add some more. The easiest way to add some more is just to increase this number. So go ahead and make it like 30, right? So now if I refresh, bam, I've got 30. 30 is better than 2, like no doubt about it. We've got more quotes than just 2 now. But we really do need some way to get them all. So let's go ahead and implement a mechanism to actually like get more. And for now, let's just do the one where like when you scroll down enough, it loads more. So what we're going to do is we're going to like add some tricks. So this trick, this is not one that I wrote. This is just I borrowed this from somebody else. Go into your document.ready function and paste in what you just saw me copy. So what is this thing? So what this does is this adds an event listener to scroll. So whenever the page scrolls, so only when the page scrolls, that's kind of one problem with this approach. So whenever the page scrolls, see where it scrolled to. I have seen some bugs with this on people's browsers, but in general, it should work for you. And so what we're going to do is anytime they scroll, we're going to see if they've scrolled to near the bottom of the page. And if that's the case, we're going to make a console log that says check for more quotes. And then if there is a next page token, so if it's been set to something, then call the list method again using the next page token. So you can see that this one had no parameters. This one has the next page token, right? And so when you call it again with the next page token, it should get the next chunk. Let's go see if this actually does anything useful at all. So refresh the page, make sure that's the case. And so now, like very carefully with your slider, bring it down. And as soon as you get to nearly the bottom, it should fire that event, and bam, it should load some more quotes. So that was actually pretty cool. So I kind of come scrolling to the bottom, and then boom, load some more quotes. And then there it does it again. And eventually I'll get to the end, right? The first quote I added was at the start of this video. It said hello and my movie. There's also one down here that said loaded via forms and JSON. So those are kind of my oldest of my quotes. If you had problems, if for some reason this scroll trick doesn't work, I'm not going to bother make you fix it. We're going to add a more button later. And if there's some weird bug where this code doesn't trigger the events right, I'm not worried about it. I didn't write this code. I just stole it from somewhere online. It was years ago. I don't even have the attribute on there, sorry. But hopefully for you and for everybody else, it should work. There are a couple bugs with it, though. So for example, let's say that we only added 3 movie quotes to start with. The problem with 3 movie quotes is you can't scroll the page, right? So you can't scroll, so there's no way to load more. So I definitely recommend an approach like a more button as kind of like a backup plan. But hopefully this primary plan works for you. All right, so we'll go ahead and cut things off here. We'll add some new quotes to endpoints next time. and we will see you then. Okay, bye.